Hello, everybody. I'm Kane,
I'm Jacob.
and we are here for a uh, special edition of In Other Words. Not typically on a Sunday morning like it has been this month, but rather throughout the week or in the middle of the week so that we can put this out into our social media channels, email channels, and things of that nature. We wanted to have a conversation that kind of explores different topics and highlights, such as like how we got into this calling of ministry that we both find ourselves in, what we enjoy about it, and processes and things of that nature. And so, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, and we hope that you enjoy this little chat.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, I'm gonna start off by asking you if you would just share for a moment about your call to ministry, what that's
Yeah.
like.
Well, I'm going to fast forward through some parts, but
Sure.
I started off in computer engineering in college at KU, um, and I was struggling in some areas that I had really done well in high school. Like even one of the classes that I tested out, I've got college credit for. I went back to take it again, and all of a sudden I couldn't do the stuff I used to be able to do. And so I ended my first semester at like a 1.8, straight onto academic probation your first time. Um, and as I was retaking some of those classes that I'd not done so well in, um, I was driving around delivering pizza for Pizza Shuttle one night and yelling at God for making me dumb. Because now all of a sudden I'm failing all the classes I could do easily. And finally there was this spot in my complaining where I took a breath and said, all right, God, if this isn't what you want for me, what do you want me to do with my life? And ever since then, I always tell people, be cautious what you ask for from God because you may get a very direct answer. And after I asked that question, I'd never felt it at that point, but I felt it a couple times since. The grace and love of God kind of just washed over me. The power of the Holy Spirit is another word that people use. And what it felt like was full, like love and acceptance in a moment. And then in that moment, I heard like a still small voice is probably the best way. Um, a word with a word in the silence, and God said, "You're supposed to be a pastor." And so there was kind of this pregnant pause moment as God was waiting for an answer, and tears were in my eyes, and I went, "All right, I'll follow you." And so I'll do it basically. Like, are you sure? I'm kind of a quirky guy, And, and so I called Leslie, at that point my fiance, and I said, hey, I'm supposed to be a pastor, and she just, okay. I said, well, that means we're going to have to go. We have to go wherever the bishop sent me. Like the only thing I remember from my confirmation class as a kid, and she said, I'll follow you wherever you go, and that was the confirmation of that. It was the final confirmation of yes, we're doing the right thing as God has called us. So.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear yours too.
Yeah, so originally when I was about 17 years old, I was really involved in youth group and all that stuff, and that's where what we called in the Baptist church when I was that age, you felt the call to surrender to ministry, like it was some sort of like wave the white flag, you lost the war kind of battle thing and stuff, but really it's just you just kind of felt like that nudge. Kind of lost sight of that for quite a while, and went into other work ventures and ideas, mostly retail management and then education in Wichita. And while in education in Wichita, I was volunteering in a youth group at a church that I was attending, Asbury Church, which was United Methodist and no longer is. And while I was volunteering, I was busing in a van, like a 15-passenger van, students from one campus to the other, where their youth group meetings were being held. And the youth director pulled me aside one night. This had been December of 2012, about 3 months after Leslie and I got married. Leslie McIntyre and I got married, and he said they were opening up a part-time middle school youth ministry position, and I really feel like you should apply. Went home that night to Leslie M and asked her, what she thought about that, and I put my application in that evening, and started in early 2013, and yeah. So that's kind of, in summary, that's kind of what that looked like for me in regards to a call to ministry. In regards to more like pastoral type calling and things like that, I found myself at a crossroads while at Asbury when they had started exploring the idea of leaving, disaffiliating for the United Methodist Church. I had to kind of discern whether or not I was going to follow that path or go a different direction, and we felt led to go down a different direction, which got me kind of more further into the United Methodist Church and to kind of where I am now in ministry. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. So your process, what's that process of ministry look like? The steps you had to take to get where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I'm an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church, and essentially my process, it took me about 12 years. Not everyone's the same, depending on when you can call it a ministry. But the path I took involved interviews and like I had to have a candidacy mentor. I had to go through some this 3-inch binder worth of information with the mentor, and that was just to be able to say, yes, I want to be a candidate. Some of this stuff doesn't even happen anymore, because that was the Kansas East Conference back then. And I had my call to ministry right there, 1.5 semesters into college, so I still had to finish my bachelor's degree. Went through, I started as a youth minister pretty soon thereafter. Actually, right after I got back from the deployment, after nothing like saying yes to God and then getting a whole wink moment. So, and then for me, like we got commissioned, which was a long series of interviews and a metric tush ton of paperwork to fill out. I realized halfway through that phrase I needed to change it.
Tush ton.
A tush ton. And then the ordination process was a lot of interviews and conversations, but also writing and giving materials out, and so getting all that assessed. And and then I think I was ordained back in 16, 15, something like that. It's good. It's far enough away that I don't have it etched in my heart anymore. So what was your process like coming in?
Yeah, it's a cool question to follow up on the previous one, because it's pretty much a continuation of my previous answer. So once again, I found myself in this place of uncertainty, fork in the road type moment because of disaffiliation.
Right.
And once my family and I had made the decision that I wasn't going to go down the disaffiliation road in the process with Asbury, I decided to reach out to the district superintendent here in Wichita at the time, Reverend Mitch Reese, and I just started exploring possibilities with him in regards to getting an appointment. This had been about 2018, 2019 timeframe, and so I entered into the local licensed pastor track for my call into ministry and exploring that in the United Methodist Church. The first year that I was appointed at the church I was at before coming here at West Heights, I was a DSA, which is a district superintendent appointee, which is essentially you're basically the voice of the district superintendent in that specific local church. And so it doesn't have many of the different highlights or benefits, if you will, as an actual ordained or local licensure appointment has. I was essentially paid and administered like a staff employee at that church with the title of pastor attached to it. So taxes, housing allowance didn't apply, all of those things. And so it was kind of uncharted territory for the church that I was in. I did that for the first year while I did the track for the local licensure.
Okay.
And so I obtained that for about a year. So it was about an 18-month process for me, from the start of calling Mitch while I was ending my time at Asbury to becoming a local licensed pastor. But for 12 months of that 18 months, I was working in a local church as a lead pastor. Did that for about 3.5 years under my local licensed pastor role at Mays United Methodist Church. And then when I got to know you, 2 summers ago, at a lunch, an annual conference, and found out you're coming to Wichita. We kind of built this little quick connection and stuff like that. And then I remember at a local coffee shop over here nearby West Heights, you had asked me one time over coffee if I knew anybody who was looking for youth visitation work. And I had been trying to get something different in line for my family and I, and things like that. And so I kind of volunteered myself to possibly apply and brought that back home, and kind of Leslie, Em, and I checked out West Heights online to kind of figure out more about what this place was about, via what the website was telling us, and decided that a change would be good for us, so went and applied, and been here for a little over a year now.
Yeah.
So
you were licensed, but things have shifted a little bit. Can you explain?
Yeah. So I've recently, over the last few weeks, really decided to make a little bit of a shift in what my ministry title looks like, by way of deciding to pause my local licensure. So currently my title at the conference or at the district level is a local licensed pastor without appointment. Essentially meaning I have the credential of a local licensed pastor, but I'm not appointed anywhere with that license.
Right.
And so I'm, working at West Heights, but not necessarily under an appointed position.
Right.
But still maintain the license. I've chosen for this next cycle, which would be effective, as far as I understand, as like July 1 of 2025, is to pause the license and not pursue maintaining it. And the reasons why is there's a few different ones. The first one on a personal level is that the last time I went through this interview process to maintain a license, which is something that local licensed pastors have to do annually, it was not a good experience. It was quite harmful. The interviewers were pretty aggressive towards me as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and as a person as well who had stepped out of an appointment and into a staff position at a church. And nobody on the district or conference level had any idea that these interviewers were going to behave in this manner, because none of them had expressed any concern with me throughout the process of them discerning me and going through my paperwork and evaluation material and things of that nature that I have to prepare for every year.
Right.
So first off there was just that personal harm. The second is that I was maintaining something that really wasn't of benefit to me, and was of little to no benefit for West Heights, United Methodist Church as a whole. So essentially what that meant is that you're able to perform wedding ceremonies. I'm able to do weddings, or I was able to do weddings and funerals, but there wasn't really necessarily a need for two different people here at the church to do weddings simultaneously. And so, and then on, just the whole time management and just like emotional and mental well-being aspect of it, with just that maintaining, it was going to require that I take 4 classes of a course of study, which is kind of like diet seminary, and stuff every year. And once again, that was just to maintain a license. That wasn't really benefiting anybody. Right. And then lastly, in regards to that conversation piece about benefit, West Heights yet is not like in the position where they would be able to kind of meet those minimum salary requirements in regards to having a person that's a local licensed pastor here at West Heights on staff as an appointed position. And so there's just several kind of realities that were all happening simultaneously that just kind of caused me to do what I believe to just be best for me. But I also think that there's there's some benefit to it as well for West Heights. They don't necessarily have to be concerned about me being reappointed elsewhere. And so if you like having me around, you don't necessarily have to worry about me leaving every spring to July time during that appointed time. And stuff where the bishop and everybody that makes those decisions decides on who should be going where. On top of that too, I wouldn't be approaching the church asking for help to pay for the tuition of those classes, which can be quite expensive. Lastly, my family and I were really happy here. And so, with that in mind, I love the idea of possibly, if a position at West Heights were to open up, that would be an appointment style, that would be a fit for a local licensed pastor or for me specifically. I have every interest in bringing my license back to an active status in order to fulfill that position. But until then, we're very satisfied and content with where we are.
Well, I know personally I'm extremely happy to work with you, and I've heard wonderful feedback from other people as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if, I mean, the word pause, so this sounds like you could hit play in the future as you feel, if that changing or shift calls or the need changes?
Yeah, and depending on time frame, there might be a few steps where I might have to kind of take that I wouldn't have to take if I was maintaining it, but they're not necessarily complex steps that would be extremely, time consuming or demanding on anybody.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Good. So, I mean, effectively, you're in the same role, right?
Mhm.
We still have you, because we, when you apply, when you said you wanted to do youth and visitation, that was, technically it's a secular role.
Yeah.
Not the visitation part, but we saw that aspect of balancing out.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's good to know that if as we progress, and there's always that possibility.
Yeah.
That invitation. There's also certain benefits that are that come with that the heightened packages that, that are there, but they also cost a significant chunk of change.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Well, what's your favorite part about working in ministry?
Ooh. The people, the
Okay.
conversations. When you get a chance to make an impact in someone's life, I absolutely love it when someone wants to come talk about theology.
Mhm.
But there are those moments where you get to help a family through their grieving process, or begin their grieving process,
Mhm.
or make an impact on a 4-year-old, a 40-year-old, and an 80-year-old all in the same day. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful, those options. And then the kind of stuff that we can do when we come together. Lions clubs and Kiwanis and all these things, those are great. But they're all kind of formed around the same idea as the church, is what happens when we get together and do good things together. What is it when we follow Christ in such a way that our impact goes to there's no way they could have done that without God.
Yeah.
And that's kind of mine. What about yourself?
Yeah. So the phrase I had considered as well was kind of this joining together. So sometimes when you are working in a church, you kind of feel like, okay, this needs to be taken care of, now this needs to be taken care of, and it kind of feels like hamster wheels syndrome, where it's just like you're just doing the same thing and you're just like wondering like where's the progress, right?
Sunday comes every week.
Yeah, but then the truth is, while that's happening, there's actually the things that I am doing, that you're doing, that we're doing like collectively, are actually bringing people into a circle, and this circle is out and doing the difference, right?
Yeah.
And so to kind of see that final piece of the puzzle like come together, but in the moment you're just like feeling like it's just another email or text message or phone call or video conversation, and you're just like, you don't always in that moment like perceive God moving in the collective and God moving in this bigger picture, and differences being made. And so I love hearing about like people coming together, making a difference in their community through West Heights, in the name of West Heights, or any other church within our connection as well, because of sometimes it just kind of feels like the next step that you have to do, and I sometimes forget that next step is part of that collective. It's part of that whole effort, and so
We can get tunnel vision sometimes.
exactly, yeah. So do you have a favorite like moment in ministry since you joined as our pastor here at West Heights United Methodist Church?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a general feeling. We just were welcomed very well here, in a way that we were going, oh, this is amazing. The generosity, the kindness we had. It's like our ministry started well before we walked through the doors for the first time as pastor and family. And so, like, we had to, based off of how moving works and all this from the distance, it was better for our family to rent a moving van and go back and forth rather than hire a company, because it was just so much more. But our problem was we needed help. And so, we let the church know, and I was thinking we'd have, a couple people helping out when we arrived. First day we get there was 12 people. And I'll tell you what, when it had taken us 4.5 hours to pack that moving van, to have it unloaded in 45 minutes was just amazing. But more than that, like, I think it was like Connie Wilson, like we did the front flower bed before we got there, and there was drinks and I mean, we just gotten off a 4.5 hour truck ride, and if you ever driven one of those trucks, as soon as we got going anywhere close to a good speed, it would. So to come in, and it wasn't just. It was like the abundance of God's love in human form in those moments, because we were tired, we were hungry, we were thirsty, and we hadn't even seen the house yet, literally. And so we're pulling up, and these wonderful people who we'd never met have thought through all the little parts. And then the next day, we couldn't get here until 10. There was 10 people here at 10 p.m. Wow. And again, the third day. It was, I mean, about 6 months later, one of the sermons I said was, at first I was like, these people are really kind. I wonder when they'll start being normal. And then all of a sudden I realized, I think this is who they are. And I shared that story on a service, and we had a new member class that same day, and one of the other members were like, right? I think it was Melinda was like, yes, there's something here it's just different, in a good different. Well, some of them are quirky, fun differences too, but yeah, that was really fast to feel that care and that love. What's one of yours?
Yeah, so when I didn't realize how difficult the transition from my previous deployment to West Heights would have been, or was going to be. To be able to just feel all the love and the support from here in the midst of some friction and stuff like that was really uplifting for us.
As the move. Okay.
Yeah, as the move was happening. But the one that sticks out to me the most was during the last general conference, the 2020 general conference in 2024. Yeah. When it had been decided, on the day that it had been decided that we were going to begin displaying equality to the LGBTQ plus community within the life of the United Methodist Church, I went to go visit a family, and within that family is a gay couple. And this gay couple came outside. I was helping them. I was picking some stuff up for them to bring up here to the church. And I asked them if they'd heard the big news, and they had not. And so I got to tell them what the big news was, and they were able to look each other in the eye, and they grabbed each other by the hand, and they said, "Do you hear that? They finally like us." And for me, that was so perfect. It was so beautiful, and to be able to edify two people that had always felt welcomed, had always felt accepted, but to be able to tell them, and for them to be able to then tell me that they actually finally feel valued, as they are in a whole sense, was I mean, I don't know if that's frosting for the cake. There's got to be, if there's a cake in this situation, that's better than the frosting.
Right.
And I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
But for me, that was the greatest moment. And I'll never forget that feeling, the look in their eye, the contact they made, just that whole scene. It's just painted in my memory forever. So but that's all the questions that I had for you. Do you have any others for me?
Maybe the next time.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
So, there is one.
Okay, yeah, let's
So
hear.
what, technically pastor wouldn't be the title as your license gets paused. So, I mean, we talked about this, but I like it better if you say what your title will be.
Yeah, Director of Youth and Visitation.
So, technically, for Methodists, the word minister is all of us who do ministry, which is all human beings.
Sure.
The word pastor is a position.
Yep.
The word, these are fun. Word preacher is a momentary moment, right?
Yeah.
You're a preacher when you're preaching, so
Right.
that could be you, could be Leslie, could be anyone.
Yep.
And so those titles could become important, but then reverend is with the depending on who you're looking at, ordination, the degree itself, or, and all these things kind of go together, but as we're looking at it, your expertise hasn't changed.
Right.
Your education and training and your calling hasn't changed.
Mhm.
Really, it's more, how does that look for the time being?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely fair.
Okay.
Spot on.
So, awesome. Well, I'm so happy to have you on the team, and I've really enjoyed working with you, and I look forward to seeing what God's going to do through us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm happy to have you on the team too.
That's good.